Man, life's a roller coaster, ain't it? Just last month, I was on cloud 9, strutting into the office with that newly promoted swagger. As the newest senior manager, I was living the dream. And Lisa, my wife, she was all smiles and congrats, hugging me like I'd won the lottery. We were a team, a unit, unstoppable. Or so I thought. The real kicker came at the company gala. You know, one of those fancy shindigs where everyone's overdressed and laughing a tad too loud. I was buzzing, introducing Lisa to everyone, proud as a peacock. Then comes Mark, my boss. The big cheese. He's all charm and charisma, shaking my hand like I'm the prodigy he's been waiting for. And Lisa, well, she's clearly taken by his high-flyer aura. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and Lisa's got Mark on the brain. Mark says this, Mark thinks that. It was like the guy had moved into our living room. I tried to brush it off as harmless chatter, you know, office politics and all. But deep down, something felt off. Like a small crack in a dam, barely noticeable until the flood comes rushing through. The flood came all right, in the form of late-night texts. I stumbled upon them one night when Lisa was deep in dreamland. There's her phone, buzzing like a bee at midnight. It's just work stuff, she'd mumble when I'd ask. But how much work stuff happens at midnight, right? So, one evening, I just laid it out there, plain and simple. What's going on with you and Mark? Her eyes did this little dance, avoiding mine. It's nothing. Just work, she said, a bit too quickly. That's when I knew. This wasn't just some office fling or harmless texts. But what do you do when the floor beneath you starts to crack? Ever had that gut-wrenching feeling when you walk into a room and it's like you've turned invisible? That's how work felt after I found those texts. Mark, my boss, who used to slap my back with a big grin, suddenly treated me like I was the last slice of stale bread. Meetings without eye contact, brief nods in the hallway. I was getting the cold shoulder big time. It was more than just awkward. It was like a silent alarm screaming that something was way off. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the day I stumbled upon those emails. It was like accidentally stepping into an alternate reality. There they were, right on Lisa's laptop, a string of emails that read more like a romance novel than office correspondence. My heart skips a beat every time you walk into the room, one of Mark's emails said. My heart didn't just skip a beat reading that, it plummeted into my stomach. Confronting Lisa wasn't just hard, it was like trying to hold water in my clenched fists. She broke down, tears streaming down her face, admitting to everything. The affair with Mark, the lies. Each word she said was like a wrecking ball to the life we had built together. I was standing there, watching the pieces of our marriage shatter on the floor. That night, I couldn't even bear to be under the same roof as her. I grabbed a duffel bag, threw in some clothes, and just drove. No destination, just away. Away from the lies, the betrayal, the broken trust. I ended up in some dingy motel room, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything I thought was real turned out to be an illusion. The next morning, the decision was as clear as the dawn breaking outside my window. It was over. I called a lawyer and started the divorce proceedings. Filing those papers felt like signing off on the death certificate of our marriage. But what else do you do when the person you trusted most turns your life into a lie? Ever walked into a room and felt like you've just crashed a party you weren't invited to? That's how my days at the office started feeling. Whispers behind closed doors, eyes darting away as I passed. The affair between Lisa and Mark wasn't just a private nightmare anymore, it was office gossip. The air was thick with tension, every good morning felt forced, and I was the guy everyone pitied but no one wanted to be around. Then came the day I'd been dreading. Mark, with all his polished words, said it was best for everyone if I left. Just like that, my job, the one I worked my butt off for, was gone. Talk about a double whammy. Betrayed by my wife, booted by my boss. I packed up my desk that day, each item a reminder of a life that was slipping through my fingers. And Lisa? She was all apologies and tears, pleading for another chance. But how do you forgive the unforgivable? I couldn't. Every sorry from her was a drop in an ocean of betrayal. We were past the point of no return. The real kicker? Mark, the home wrecker, decided to end things with Lisa. No grand gesture, just a cold goodbye. She was left just as broken as she left me. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but the other part, well, let's just say it wasn't so sympathetic. Meanwhile, I was pounding the pavement, trying to land a job. But the story of my personal soap opera had spread like wildfire. Interviews started with sympathetic looks and ended with polite rejections. I was the guy with the messed up personal life, and no one wanted that in their office. Every closed door was a reminder of how far I'd fallen, all thanks to a backstabbing wife and a boss who couldn't keep his hands to himself. So there I was, jobless, wifeless, floating in a sea of rumors and broken dreams. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but at that moment, I just felt like a man clinging to the last bit of dignity I had left. You know that saying, you reap what you sow. Well, Lisa was getting a first-class lesson in it. Ever since our dirty laundry got aired out, her phone stopped buzzing. Friends? Ghosted her. Family? Cold shoulders all around. She was suddenly the outcast, the pariah. I guess cheating does that to you. It's one thing to lose your husband, but to lose your entire social circle? That's a whole other level of lonely. But that wasn't the half of it. Our divorce turned into an all-out war, the kind you see in movies. Lawyers throwing jabs like heavyweight boxers. Every meeting was a battleground, every document a weapon. We were fighting over everything, the house, the car, even the stupid blender. It was messy, exhausting, and expensive. The love we once had? Buried under a mountain of legal papers. In the midst of this chaos, I had to keep the lights on, right? So, I started this little side gig. Nothing fancy, just a small business out of my garage. Fixing stuff, selling stuff, whatever it took to make ends meet. It was no walk in the park, but it kept me busy, kept my mind off the mess that was my personal life. And then, out of the blue, Lisa comes knocking, all teary-eyed and remorseful. She was a mess, begging for a second chance, saying she'd changed. But you know what? I wasn't buying it. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Well, you know the drill. I shut that door, both literally and figuratively. I had a business to run, a life to rebuild. No time for reruns of a show that ended in disaster. Rebuilding my life was like putting together a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing. Tough, frustrating, but not impossible. I was piecing together a new normal, one day at a time. And Lisa? She was a part of a past I was trying hard to leave behind. They say time heals all wounds, but some things? They leave a mark that no amount of time can erase. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. Life's got a funny way of balancing the scales, doesn't it? While I was grinding away, turning my little garage gig into something real, Lisa's world was crumbling. The scandal had spread like wildfire, and her family, once her rock, turned into a wall of ice. Birthday parties, family gatherings, she was persona non grata, an outcast in her own clan. I heard about it through the grapevine, not that I was keeping tabs, but news like that has a way of finding you. But here's the kicker, while Lisa's life was going south, my business? It started booming. I'm talking orders piling up, phone ringing off the hook. Who knew there was such a demand for custom furniture and repairs? I sure didn't, but I wasn't complaining. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was feeling good, really good. It was like I'd finally hit my stride, finding some kind of purpose in the midst of all that chaos. Now, let's talk about Mark. Mr. High and Mighty wasn't sitting so pretty anymore. The office whispers turned into full-blown backlash. People don't take kindly to a boss who messes around with employees' spouses, go figure. Last I heard, the guy was on the ropes, fighting to save his career. Then, one day, I'm grabbing a coffee and I overhear a couple of guys talking. Mark got the boot, they said. Fired. Can't say I was surprised, but hearing it felt like a long overdue slap of karma. Maybe there is some justice in this world after all. As for Lisa, well, she was in a tough spot. No family support, friends gone, and rumor had it, she was struggling to make ends meet. I'd be lying if I said part of me didn't feel a pang of something. Was it pity? Maybe. But there was also a sense of vindication. She was finally facing the music, dealing with the fallout of her choices. Life's a series of ups and downs, you know? And at that moment, our roles had reversed. I was on the upswing, building something from the ground up, while Lisa was down in the dumps, trying to piece together the shards of her once picture-perfect life. Ever seen one of those movies where the guy signs a paper and his whole life changes? That was me, the day our divorce was finalized. It was surreal. A few scribbles on a legal document, and boom, it's over. Lisa walked out of that courthouse with nothing but a suitcase of regrets. The woman who once had it all, family, a loving husband, was now walking a path she paved with her own mistakes. Meanwhile, my little business venture? It started taking off like a rocket. Local media got wind of my story, the guy who turned his life around post-scandal. Next thing I know, I'm the comeback kid in a news feature. Orders were rolling in, and my workshop became my sanctuary, a place where I could turn raw materials into something beautiful, something meaningful. But life's got a way of throwing curveballs. Just when I thought I had my emotions on lockdown, I met someone. Let's call her Emily. She was different, kind, understanding, and she knew nothing about my past. With her, I felt like I could start fresh, be someone new. We took it slow, real slow. I wasn't about to dive headfirst into anything without testing the waters first. Lisa, on the other hand, wasn't faring so well. She tried to mend fences with her family, but they weren't having any of it. Can't say I blame them. Trust is like a mirror. You can fix it if it's broken, but you can still see the cracks in the reflection. Her family saw too many cracks. Now here's the real kicker. Lisa got wind of my new relationship. Jealousy's a funny thing. It can turn the sanest person into a wreck. She started spinning stories, trying to sabotage what I had with Emily. Accusations, lies, the works. But Emily, she saw through it all. She knew the real me, the me that had grown from the rubble of my broken marriage. As I lay in bed that night, thinking about all that had happened, I realized something. Life's about moving forward, about growing and learning from the past. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's about getting a second chance to write a new chapter, on your own terms. Karma, they say, is a boomerang. And for Lisa, it came back with a vengeance. Her attempts to mess with my life? They backfired, big time. The stories she spun to damage my relationship only ended up tarnishing her image more. Gossip spreads fast, and soon, everyone knew Lisa as the woman who not only wrecked her own marriage but also tried to ruin her ex's new happiness. Her reputation took a nosedive, and I couldn't help but think it was the universe's way of settling scores. On my end, life was looking up. Emily was like a breath of fresh air, a balm to the wounds of my past. With her, I found peace, a kind of healing I never thought possible. We laughed, shared stories, and slowly, the shadows of my former life began to fade. She made me believe in love again, in a future that wasn't tainted by betrayal. Meanwhile, Lisa's life was unraveling at the seams. Financial woes came knocking, and she found herself evicted from her apartment. It was a tough pill to swallow, from a comfortable life to struggling to keep a roof over her head. I heard about her misfortune through mutual acquaintances. Part of me felt a pang of sympathy, but it was drowned out by the memories of her deceit. Then came a day I'll never forget. It was an ordinary evening, but for me, it was the moment I chose to start a new chapter. There, under a sky painted with sunset hues, I asked Emily to marry me. It wasn't grand or extravagant, just a simple question loaded with hope and promise. She said yes, and in that yes, I found a new beginning, a chance to rebuild on the ruins of my past. As for Lisa, she tried to claw her way back up. Started a small venture, something to call her own. But the bridges she'd burned along the way left her stranded. Support, trust, goodwill, she'd squandered it all. Her business floundered, struggling to take off without the network and relationships that are often the lifeline of any new enterprise. Looking back, it's strange how life works. There I was, moving forward, building a future with someone who showed me what true partnership means. And Lisa, the woman I once thought I'd spend my life with, was a fading figure in my rearview mirror, a reminder of what happens when trust is shattered and choices come full circle. Have you ever felt like you're finally in the right place at the right time? That's how life was feeling for me. My friends and family, they were all seeing it too. They'd look at me and say, "You're different, happier." And they were right. With Emily, I found a joy I thought was long gone. We'd host these little get-togethers, nothing fancy, just close friends and family. And the laughter, the smiles, it was real, genuine. They were thrilled for me, for us. After all the storms, it felt like I'd finally found my safe harbor. Meanwhile, Lisa was still out there, trying to pick up the pieces of the life she shattered. In a moment of desperation, she reached out to Mark. Maybe she hoped he'd be her lifeline, a ticket back to the life she'd lost. But life isn't a fairy tale. Mark, the guy who played Prince Charming turned villain, gave her the cold shoulder. He wanted nothing to do with her. Can't say I was surprised. Guys like him, they don't look back. Lisa was left out in the cold, her last hope of clinging to her old life gone. Back in my world, Emily and I were busy planning our wedding. We wanted something small, intimate, just close friends and family. No big spectacle, no over-the-top celebrations. Just a day to celebrate us, our journey, and the future we were building together. We'd sit in our living room, surrounded by notebooks and ideas, planning every little detail. It was like weaving our dreams into reality, stitch by stitch. Every decision, from the flowers to the guest list, was a reflection of us, of the life we wanted to live together. In those moments, surrounded by love and support, planning a future with Emily, I realized something important. Life's about the choices we make, the paths we take. My path led me to a new beginning, a chance to write a different story, one filled with trust, love, and genuine happiness. And as for Lisa, her path was a stark reminder of where wrong choices can lead you. It's funny how life works, isn't it? You never really know where it's going to take you until you're there, looking back at the road you've traveled. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, and sometimes, they hit hard. I heard through the grapevine about Lisa's health taking a nosedive. Stress, loneliness, they're silent killers. I pictured her in her apartment, a shadow of the woman she once was, and part of me, the part that remembered the good times, felt a twinge of something. Sympathy? Maybe. But the larger part of me, the part that remembered the lies and betrayal, held firm. I made a conscious choice not to reach out. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. I was moving on, my life gaining a momentum of its own. But Lisa? She was stuck in a loop. Every attempt at starting anew, at finding someone to share her life with, crumbled under the weight of her past. People talk, and her story, the story of how she tore apart her own life, followed her like a shadow. Every potential relationship fizzled out before it could even start. The consequences of her actions were like chains, holding her back from moving forward. You see, the thing about the past is it never really lets go, especially when it's riddled with mistakes. Lisa was learning that the hard way. Her health, her love life, all in tatters because of choices she made. It's a harsh reality, but it's a truth that many of us have to face at some point. We're the architects of our own fate, and sometimes, we design a structure that's just too fragile to stand. As I heard these snippets of her life, part of me wanted to feel vindicated, to revel in her downfall. But another part of me, maybe the wiser part, just felt sad. Sad for the love we lost, sad for the life she could have had. It's a strange thing, empathy. It sneaks up on you, even when you think you've shut the door on it. So there I was, forging ahead with my own life, while Lisa was trapped in a whirlpool of her own making. It's a stark reminder of how our choices define us, for better or for worse. Life's a tapestry of decisions, and each thread we weave can either create a masterpiece or a tangled mess. Picture this. A sunny day, a small chapel surrounded by flowers, and the woman of your dreams walking down the aisle. That was my wedding day, a day brimming with joy and optimism. Emily looked stunning, like she stepped out of a fairy tale. Me? I was just the luckiest guy in the world. There were smiles, laughter, and a few happy tears. It was perfect, a fresh start, a new chapter. We were surrounded by people who loved us, supported us. The air was electric with hope, a stark contrast to the gloom of my past. Meanwhile, Lisa was on a different kind of journey. Alone, with her thoughts as her only company, she reflected on where it all went wrong. Regret can be a bitter pill to swallow, and for her, it was a daily dose. The life she once had, the people she once called friends, all gone. Her choices had led her to this point, destitute, alone, living in the shadows of what could have been. After our wedding, Emily and I jetted off to a secluded beach for our honeymoon. It was like stepping into paradise. The sun, the sand, the endless ocean. It was a celebration of our love, a time to bask in the happiness we'd found in each other. We were building memories, the kind that last a lifetime, the kind that light up your darkest days. Back in the city, Lisa tried to mend fences, reaching out to old friends in a bid to rekindle lost connections. But the doors were shut, the bridges burned. Her calls were met with coldness, her messages with silence. The betrayal and scandal had left a sour taste, and no one was in a hurry to forgive or forget. It's tough, seeing doors close on you, knowing you're the one who shut them in the first place. As Emily and I walked hand in hand along the beach, laughing and planning our future, I realized something important. Life is about moving forward, about finding happiness even after you've been through the darkest tunnels. And as for the past? It's a lesson, not a life sentence. Lisa's story, as sad as it was a reminder of that. We all make choices, and those choices write the story of our lives. Mine was turning into a tale of love, hope, and new beginnings. Returning from the honeymoon felt like stepping into a whole new world. The sun-kissed days and starry nights were behind us, and ahead was the reality of our new life together. Emily and I were filled with plans and dreams as we crossed the threshold of our home. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, like the start of a great adventure. I was ready, more than ever, to dive into this new chapter, to build a life filled with love, trust, and laughter. Meanwhile, life was dishing out a different kind of reality to Lisa. She was tangled up in legal troubles, unpaid debts piling up, knocking on her door like unwelcome guests. It was a harsh reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control. Her financial woes were a stark contrast to the life of luxury she once flaunted. Hearing about Lisa's troubles stirred up a weird cocktail of emotions in me. There was pity, sure. It's tough seeing someone hit rock bottom, even someone who betrayed you. But there was also a sense of indifference. The pain she caused had created a chasm too wide to bridge with sympathy. Her downfall was of her own making, a bed she had to lie in alone. In a bid to escape her troubles and perhaps her past, Lisa packed up and moved to a different city. A fresh start, or so she hoped. Maybe a new place could give her the chance to turn things around, to rebuild from the ruins of her choices. Everyone deserves a second chance, or at least, that's what they say. As I sat in my workshop one evening, surrounded by the scent of wood and varnish, I found myself reflecting on the journey I'd been on. From the depths of betrayal to the heights of love, it had been a roller coaster, to say the least. But here I was, stronger, happier, and more fulfilled than I'd ever been. The lessons I'd learned along the way were etched into my soul, about love, loss, trust, and the power of moving forward. Life's a mosaic of experiences, each piece colored by our choices and actions. Looking back, I could see how each piece had its place, how each moment, good or bad, had led me to where I was. And for all that, I was grateful. Grateful for the love I'd found, the lessons I'd learned, and the future that lay ahead, bright and full of promise.